Wonderful. So, Hafsat Abiola, thank you so much for accepting to be our guest today and tell us your story. You are a committed humanist and the president of Women in Africa Initiative, which is the foremost platform organizing the continent's leading women into a force for sustainable development. You're an economist with degrees from Harvard and Tsinghua. You are a pro-democracy activist who lost both parents to your country's democracy struggle. And you're a former member of Ogun State Cabinet in charge of the MDGs and trade and investment portfolios in Nigeria. You believe in women's equal engagement in the economy, and you believe that governance systems at all levels will lead to a better world. You are one of 50 councillors of the World Future Council, a special envoy for women's political leaders. You're co-lead of Connected Women Leaders, a member of BMW Foundation's Responsible Leaders Group. You're a Vital Voices 100 and the World Economic Forum's Young Global Leaders alumni. So Hafsat, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. It's a pleasure and an honor. You have been on an incredible life journey, Hafsat. And you, as an economist, social activist, have dedicated your life's work to advancing the cause of women in leadership. You're currently the president of Women in Africa Initiative. What is your story?
I love that question. So I think that in terms of my background, I was raised in West Africa on the coast in Lagos, which is one of the mega cities in Africa. And I was raised in a very protective Muslim conservative environment. But by this Pan-Africanist, my father was a Pan-Africanist and humanist. He was a philanthropist. And he very much wanted people to do well. Because he had come from a poor home, and the community's support had allowed him to become an incredibly successful businessman in Africa at the time. So he raised all his children to be very concerned about this issue of how Africa would rise. Mm-hmm. And he also raised us to be very, to identify with the whole continent. So I remember that my first trip outside of Nigeria was to Senegal, not to Gorée Island, but to Dakar. And when we came out of the plane, my father said to me, my Yoruba name is Ronke. He said, Ronke, look at those people and see how well they stand on the ground. And I looked and I saw that the Senegalese people have this elegance, this dignity that is just breathtaking. And so I was raised by somebody who at every point would say, Ronke, look and see and marvel at our people. So I've always been able to appreciate the promise of the continent. And unfortunately for my family, my father got involved in politics in Nigeria, and he was elected president, and then he was put in jail. Then my mother, who was leading the movement, was killed. And this happened when I was about 20. I was about to turn 21 when she was killed. And that was pivotal for us. Unfortunate to lose both parents, but in a way, I feel that it was also a passing of the baton to me and to my siblings. So I became involved in Nigeria's pro-democracy movement because of them, because of my parents. And when we were able to secure democracy in Nigeria, I then joined different other efforts in the US to promote youth empowerment, I've worked and founded several global organizations about empowering young people, helping young people secure jobs. So I've been working for maybe 25 years on these kinds of themes. I've lived in China, I've lived in the US, now I'm in Belgium, and I've traveled all over the world. And I think if I have one thing about my story, it's this notion that it's time for Africa to change the African dream. And it's part of my responsibility to help Africa do that. I think our dream for a long time has been to look outside of the continent for ideas, for inspiration. And I think it's time that we start to look within, because the power is within us, and we can recreate, we can restore the glory of that continent. We can bring it to a new level that it has never attained. And we are the ones to do it in partnership with others. And my story now is really about being that bridge that connects the people of Africa, and especially the women of Africa, to the world that wants to help us realize this possibility.
Wow, that is powerful. And you say such powerful words with such a soft voice. I'm always, I listen to you and I could listen for days in a row. Hafsat, what is the biggest opportunity that you have faced in your life, and why was that a defining one for you?
I think the biggest opportunity that I've had in my life was a question that my father asked me. No, he didn't even ask me the question. It came to my school. It was after the military had annulled the election, and he was looking for support from the United States. And then it happened, since he was in the US, it came to my school. I was at Harvard at the time. And so I arranged the dinner, and I brought my professors to meet my dad and my closest friends. And they were talking to my dad, and they asked him, "Why did you send your daughter to us?" And my father said, "I want her to learn what you know." Now, up until this point, my father had never told me this. I didn't know that that's why he sent me outside of the country. Yeah, I just thought I'm here to just, get an education. But I didn't know that it was very specific, that he wanted me to learn what they know. Obviously, because he wanted us to see what could be translated.
Yes.
And I really, as soon as he said that, I felt bad on one hand that he was saying this. I was already well into my second year, almost entering my third year. If he had said it from the beginning, would I not have paid more attention? But okay, so he has said it now. So I started, from that point, I started paying attention. And from there, after he died and I got married, my husband and I moved to China. So when I was in China, I just decided that, remember what Daddy said he wanted you to learn. So I now enrolled at Tsinghua to do a master's in international development, to find out what is the Asian take on this challenge of development. So if I come late to it while I was in the US, let me try to recover some time. And I everywhere I go, everyone I meet, that's really the guiding principle for me, is what can we learn? What can we do together to lift this place? So it was an opportunity, because it opened me up to live a bigger life.
Right.
Because to be honest with you, Auntie Nadia, Africans are always called to live a small life. And the more educated we are, the stronger that call. Or to be successful, to be a success in your career, to focus on you, your husband, your children, to focus on, maybe if you want to add on to that, then you add siblings, because we're so westernized. But the Africans that are really rooted in Africa always think bigger than that.
Yes.
And I just thought, this question of that my father asked me forced me to not go small when I can go big.
Not go small when you can go big. That is really, really a massive learning. Do not go small when you can go big. Well, when I think of you, Hafsat, the words that come to my mind are courage, determination, and leadership. How do you define yourself, and what are the effective skills you use to make that effective, make it a reality?
I define myself as a daughter of the continent, the mother continent, and as an instrument of the ancestors to bring about the fulfillment of a dream, of a continent that is at par with its sister continents, where its people live with dignity in a world of equal exchange in the market, and where our states are a full expression of our humanity. How do I work to bring this about? I take one step at a time, but with a focus on this goal. I don't move from that goal. I don't move from that goal because, you know, in every interaction with people, they want something from you. There's something, there's a goal, there's something that they want you to deliver.
Yeah.
And I'm only interested in delivering things that align with this goal. When it doesn't, I'm just not. You cannot, there's nothing that can engage me. Once I see that this is not in the right direction, I will not participate. Because you see, in the end, you know, you cannot change the world. You cannot. But you have power over yourself. I'm sovereign unto myself. I'm a sovereign being. So my decisions, as long as I always align them to this large vision, I have at least I'm 46 now. I'll be 47 in August. I have maybe 3 decades more. That's quite a lot of time, maybe even more if I take good care of my health. And if I'm always focused on this goal, but taking one step at a time, surely in 30 years, I should be able to make a journey of 1,000 miles. I am intent that by the time I leave this planet and I make my way back to the ancestors, I have a full story to tell them of progress that has been made so that they can be at peace and they can be happy. And I'm going to achieve it, however. And everyone I meet, you know, I'm always telling them about the big goal. And when I first tell them, even I feel stupid because, you know, I meet this major pharmaceutical company. I remember one of my very first meetings as president of WIA. My team in Paris were so darling. They took me to this major company. And I said to them, I want us to move beyond supporting a handful of African women, to supporting thousands, then supporting tens of thousands, supporting hundreds of thousands. And we start supporting millions, then we know we have started doing something. And they were looking at me because for them, they'd done so much already for us in supporting a handful. And of course, they didn't sign up for this larger thing. But many years later, they're now talking to us about opening a school in the biggest country on the continent. You know, so if you start, it always looks crazy.
Yes.
But in the end, you know, if you keep saying it, then people will fall in line. Or at least you will know who is not going to fall in line. And then you can go to others and keep saying the crazy things. And some people like crazy.
Yes.
I mean, I love crazy. And I'm not the only one. So if I keep asking and asking, after 1,000 no, you will finally get a yes. And I think we need to have enough confidence in the possibility of the continent and in the fact that we have allies that we know nothing about, that we should just keep asking. I remember there was this story I read about Bill Gates, and he said he maybe approached, I think maybe 300 people to ask them to invest in Microsoft, and of which maybe 40 said yes, and then in the end maybe less than 10 signed up at first. But look where he went. When I read it, I don't know if it was 300 or even more than 300. I was shaken when I read it, because I realized that after maybe the first 15 no, I become so sad.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to withdraw into a shell. And I thought to myself, but look at Bill Gates. And can we say that, is there something about Bill Gates' mother's milk that is more than my mother's milk? I mean, was he rooted in some kind of soil more than the soil on the continent that we know? So better be ready for it. Even if it's a million no's, so long as we know that the only answer we will take is a yes, we will keep asking.
Of course. So you like crazy, and we like crazy. That's why we get along.
Yes. I really like crazy, and especially like people who don't look crazy, but who are not thinking about the world we're in, but where the world could be.
Exactly.
You know, and I think, you know, since you're on Gorée Island, this is so perfect, you know, for you, because I read somewhere that slavery is not Africa's history. Slavery interrupted Africa's history.
Yes.
And it got me thinking that how often are Africans being interrupted? How often are women being interrupted? And what would we be doing if we were not being interrupted all the time? And so, you know, yes, people will interrupt because people are products of their time. But supposing could become so clear in what we're trying to achieve that the interruption doesn't even register, and we can keep our eye on the ball. After a while, the people that are interrupting will be like, this one is not even paying attention to us. Let's even see where she's going and see if we want to join her a little bit of the way.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what we need to do as Africans, so that in the end, Africa is generating its own Microsoft, its own major companies, which are women lead the world in creating these companies. And if they have support, why wouldn't it grow into an Apple and be worth trillions of dollars? Why not? But we have to believe in ourselves, and we have to support ourselves and push these women forward.
Definitely. And we support We Are. So Hafsat, could you kindly share with us a couple of anecdotes, 2, 3 maybe, related to the challenges and opportunities that you have faced in building your career?
I really should have spent some time with this question, you know, because I want to share one story. One day, I got a call from someone you know well, Charlotte Oban Kalijian.
Who's
She's
online?
a French woman. Yes, she's online with us.
Yes,
she's one of these brilliant, ultra brilliant European global citizens.
Absolutely.
Based out of France. And she told me about this organization called Women in Africa. She wanted me to become part of it. And they were convening a meeting, a gathering in Morocco, in Marrakesh, which I had never been to before.
Yeah.
But I thought, okay, Charlotte is saying come, so why not? So I went to the embassy. They were incredibly nice. And now today I'm very good friends with the ambassador, the Moroccan ambassador to Nigeria. They processed the visa very quickly. I got on the plane and I arrived at this event in Marrakesh that had about 600 women from across Africa.
Yeah.
And there was this French woman that is in her 60s, very beautiful, very elegant woman, who had created this organization, Eau de Toin. So Charlotte introduced us, and I just felt like I was in a new constellation, in a star formation in this place. It was so beautiful. It was a celebration of Africa, of Africa's future, and of women's role in shaping this future. It was such a beautiful place and experience that I had. Who was to know that I was going to be invited to be ambassador for Nigeria, to be on the board with you, and then to be president? It's been, you know, I feel like every experience I've had in my life was just prep for this role. And in terms of an anecdote about that, the role with women in Africa, I remember the first meeting I had with Aude. We were in one of our favorite restaurants in Paris. And I went there and we sat down. Her husband was with her. Her husband is often with her, Hubert. And Charlotte also joined us. And I said to Aude, I said, she said she was looking for a partner, somebody that would become president of WEA. And we were discussing the possibility of me being that person. And I said, the way I see women in Africa is I see it as a bridge. I see the continent. You see, people are thinking the women of Africa have to rise. The women of Africa, it's not that they have to rise, it's that the world has to support that rise, because these women are applying themselves every day. But the world is in a relationship with Africa that is one of extraction, exploitation, and when I'm really upset, I even say of evil. And I think that, yes, African women can rise, but we need a world that is ready to receive an Africa rising.
Yeah.
So I said to Aude that when I look at her, I see a white European French woman who to me represents that world. And I am representing the women from Africa. And so I'm a bridge. She's also a bridge. We're kind of like two endpoints of a bridge. And we're trying to build a bridge to each other to really give these women in Africa allies. So the work of women in Africa, we call it Women in Africa, but we should as well call it Women in the World for Women in Africa. Yeah. Because it's not just about the women in Africa, because if it were just about the women in Africa, by their own intelligence, by their own creativity, they can transform the continent. But it's also about the vested interest in that continent that hold the continent down. Yes. And we need allies to free up those interests, to release the pressure on holding the continent down so that the continent can rise. Yeah. It's like George Floyd. We would have needed somebody to push off the Mr. Chauvin when he had his knee on George Floyd. It's not a matter of George standing up and being a champion. If somebody has his knee on your neck, well, where are you going to go? If he has it on your neck for long enough, you're going to die, as he did. So we need a world moving all the the confused, opportunistic, venal energy that is holding down the continent, moving it away, so that the continent, women and men can lift that place. And they're ready to do it, but we can't do it alone. So that's one anecdote. And I have to say that Aude has been wonderful in that regard. She's really taking me on as a partner. We've worked together, we work back and forth. And it's not easy because I'm African, she's French. We're so very different. We're so very different, but more and more there's trust. And not just with Aude, but with the whole team, which is made up of people on the continent and people in Europe. And even people like you who are on our board, helping us shape that emerging story. And I think it's the key for the continent. Africa is not going to rise the way China has risen, because China kept itself away, it shut itself off, and then it transformed and then reopened.
Yes.
We have to transform while open.
Yes.
And the world has to make that possible for the continent to do.
Wow. Wow. That was something. Now, you're a public speaker. I know that for sure, and I think everybody agrees with me. Where do you get the confidence to stand and speak, and how do you command attention?
So when I was starting, my father, who Nigerians call MKO, was in prison. And my mom, Kuti, a gentle heart, had been gunned down. So I didn't really want to come out and speak. And I was not even used to coming out to speak because, my life was going to go a particular way. The boy who lived 5 minutes from my house was my boyfriend. We were going to marry. We were going to live so close that when my parents stepped out, they could stop in and check on everyone. And I wasn't supposed to be now traveling all over the all over the world, fighting for democracy and speaking on behalf of a democratic struggle. That was just not where the story was supposed to go. But here we have it, that my sweet MKO was in prison. And MKO, when I was born, I looked exactly like his mom. And they said, you know, this is Mama come again. And he always believed that I was his mom. And so I always felt a very strong sense of responsibility. Because of that, I was more than ready, anything to help, anything to help. So I was, when my mom was gone down, she was killed on the 4th of June. By the 5th of June, I was on CNN speaking about what she was fighting for. I was on BBC, Voice of America, every place. I wrote articles in the New York Times, Washington Post. But it was because of the momentum of that time. It was about meeting the needs of that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I've continued. And so that if I'm an adequate public speaker now, it's just the benefit of practice. I've just had that many opportunities to get out there and say what I have to say, that over time I've gotten better at saying it clearly.
Wonderful, wonderful. Hafsat, we are in 2021, and yet the theme of women in the business remains vivid, and it's still a challenge. According to you, what can men do to support women's empowerment in Africa?
I think men should take on more domestic chores so that they can free up women's time. There's only 24 hours in the day. And if the African woman is burdened by all the work of reproducing the family, then that's time that she's not using to develop ideas for how to be productive in the society outside of our children. So we need the men to partner with us in that place, in the private spaces. Mm-hmm. If they partner with us in the private spaces, we'll be free to do more in the public spaces where we're critically needed. You see, women, there was one study that was done and that I read about when I was about to graduate from Harvard, and I've never found the study again. I hope maybe one day I will. They looked at the difference between men and women managers, and they found that men managers, men in the corporate track, when they have a male manager, the male manager is very tough on the junior staff, mm-hmm. and very kowtowing to the superior people above them in the hierarchy. But that women actually are very nurturing to the junior staff, and then very tough to people above them in the hierarchy. And when I look at the crisis in Africa, one element of the crisis has to do with accountability, the difficulty of speaking truth to power. And I think women are very good at being able to do that. They can speak to people higher in the hierarchy than them in defense of the collective interest. Men can also do that, but sometimes when men do the calculation about what it would cost them, the implications for their career and all of this, they may end up not speaking up when they should, just to be able to get ahead. But women are more willing to pay that price if it's in the collective interest. And we need more Africans saying to those people that wield authority, whether in the corporate sector or in the government sector, that you could do better, and this is a place where you've done poorly. Somebody needs to be doing that, not somebody. There has to be a force doing that consistently, and then that would make our leadership do better, and then it would have a ripple effect across the society. So we need men to be our partners, true partners, not just, and which also means that men should take a back seat sometimes. They always take up room. But if you want women to claim their space, you also have to give up some room so that the women too can enter into those spaces. And the last thing, you know, the big challenge on the continent, aside from is also our culture and our traditions. You know, the culture and traditions are very good at telling women and men their roles and their place. But we have to be willing to change those if we want Africa, if we want the Africa we deserve.
Yes.
You know, and there's no way Africa can advance keeping half its population back. There's no way you're going to be able to have Africa advancing while women are there in the kitchen, in the house, not in the government. In Nigeria, it's Aso Rock, whichever is the presidential house, not as first lady, as respectable as those are, but as even president, as governor, as leaders. Women have a right. They have something to say. They have a difference that they want to make, and they should be given the opportunity to do that. So men should free up those spaces. In China, they used to break the feet of women, foot binding, in the beginning of the 20th century. The Communist Party changed that. They banned that, made it illegal. They made so many policies to advance women in China. And we look at China today. That could be us. What China means for the world in the 21st century is what Africa can mean for the world in the 22nd. The 22nd century can belong to us, but we have to make the way now for women to claim their rightful place. And then the women will begin to build that future together with men. So that's what I think that the African men can do.
Thank you so much for that. You know, Hafsat, we have listeners around the world. They're in America, in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, in the Middle East. What advice would you give to those among them who are wanting to follow in your footsteps?
My advice to them would be that you have to focus on the goal. Sincerely, we would have a different world if people were not always making short-term compromises. And we're making that too often, and then in the end, we don't get the future we deserve. We need to focus on the goal. You know, there's one great saying that you're not going to change the world by railing against all the things that are bad. You change the world by creating something new.
Yes.
In that becomes so attractive that it draws people away from what you wanted to change. And I think that all of us, if we join together, we can be building that new world. We spend so much of our energy saying this is wrong and that is wrong, and it's right to do it. But people in general are not going to, they're not going to attach themselves to a dream. People attach themselves to reality. So we have to build the dream in the world. We have to allow people to see that this is real. It can be like this. And then they'll join. So I would say to people that are interested in commencing on a journey to make to change the dream, that start wherever you are, however you can, with whatever you have, number one. But number two, know that your power is in the connection. The more we can connect to each other, the more power we have. What was the power of the colonizers? There was a link between the people that owned the ships, the people that owned the banks and the financing, the monarchies that owned the military might. And then they came and made such an impact on our world. An incredibly negative impact, yes, but an impact nonetheless. But they came together and delivered on what they wanted. What if we had the audacity of belief in ourselves to start connecting and then go forward and see what we can do? We would change reality. So I would say to those people that let's connect. let's connect using, if your interest is in African women, connect through women in Africa. If it's in something else, find people working on the things you're already doing, and drop your ego. It's so irrelevant. In 100 years, your name may not even be remembered. Maybe in 200 years, if it lasts 100, it may not last 200. In 500, it will not be remembered at all. All the people that created Harvard University, I don't know their names except John Harvard. And yet, the dream that brought them all together, they made it a reality in the world, and we're all, till today, it's a gift that keeps giving. We can be that for the future, but we have to release the ego and really build the build that ecosystem for a new reality, and we can build it.
Release the ego and build the eco. Wow. Ha, you're blowing my mind, eh? Hafsat, speaking to your younger self, with the knowledge that you currently have, what are the three essential pieces of advice you would give yourself to start your career?
Always play a long game. Always put aside money. Because always plan as if it's nothing is going to work. So you always have power, because when you plan as if it's not going to work, you've prepared for an alternative, you've prepared a backup, and that gives you the confidence to go forward. You know, so always plan as if things are not going to work. And the last thing I would probably say is maybe, for me, it's especially important because I did a, you know, this Ofsted, this yes, is this what is he? He's a sociologist from the Netherlands. He has died now. He wrote a book about the cultural traits from people all over the world. And he said that in Nigeria, in countries in Africa, women have a lot of masculinity in them.
Yes.
And he defined this as go-getting energy. So I was talking to the person who runs Ofsted for Nigeria, and I laughed and I said, but to me, I don't have a lot of masculinity. In fact, I think my masculinity is extremely small, in that my energy is extremely internal, and it takes a lot of work for me to come out of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so I would say to my younger self, keep practicing coming out of yourself. Maybe by now, if I've been practicing more assiduously over the decades, maybe I would even be better now than I am, because I find that it's very hard to perform. I'm more of a ruminator. I always like to reflect. And then to actually do is very, very, very hard. So I was laughing and I said, but how come when they say Nigerian women are so masculine, what happened to me?
Well,
but maybe
you may
I don't. Do you have advice for me about what did you say?
I said you may be the exception that confirms the rule.
Yes, but I do think I need to work on that, because I think a little bit more masculinity is not a bad idea.
No, it's not actually. You're right. So Hafsat, we have come to the end of this wonderful conversation. And as I said, you know, I could be listening to you for hours in a row. Do you have any final message for our audience today?
Yes, my final message, I think, is that where the world is calling for an evolution, you know, we've really exhausted the limits of the philosophy, the ideologies that have shaped all that we've achieved thus far. And I think that's a lucky thing, because there's still so much to be done. So we should be willing to work together now, all of us, with all our education, all our brilliance, all our hopes for the future, to break out of the mold that we're in and forge a new one that is more aligned to our values, that is more aligned to our humanity. And I think that this is the time, Auntie Nadia, you know, when I think of King Mansa Musa, who took so much gold to to the Middle East so many centuries ago. And Africans always taking so much of our wealth to the rest of the world. This is the time when Africa should be calling on the rest of the world to bring wealth to Africa. We are the mother continent. We birthed humanity. And now, in order to be restored to our proper place, we need all our children aligned and supporting and working with us to bring about that transformation. And I hope that they will.
Such powerful words, spoken in such a soft and soothing voice. Dear friends, I did tell you this lady absolutely rocks. She is something else. Hafsat, thank you so much. From the bottom of our heart, on behalf of Gilles and myself, on behalf of the Acosphere team, and on behalf of all our friends today, thank you a million times for such an energizing talk. I can see powerful. Thank you, Hafsat, for a wonderful conversation. So true. There's been so many positive comments. Thank you so much. Next week, we are welcoming yet another great lady. Her name is Gazelle Girandou. She has a gallery in Abidjan, so she is in the world of arts, and I'm sure you're going to love that talk. She will be interviewed by Gilles Acogny. So, same place, same time, next week, Thursday. We look forward to seeing you all. In the meantime, thank you very much, everyone. Hafsat, Abiola, thank you again for being with us today. Stay safe, stay blessed, and we shall see you all next week again. Take good care of yourselves.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.